Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Welcome to Foreplay Matters.
You are?
Well, Foreplay Matters because what? It matters. I'm Madam Wee.
And I am Madame Beaucoup. And welcome to another edition of Foreplay Matters, and we're continuing a conversation about
Fantasies.
Ew, I can never run dry on that topic. All right, so where are we going to get started? What are we talking about today?
Well, the thing is, where do you start? At what point in your relationship do you start to have that conversation about exploring sexual fantasies?
Okay, that's a hard question because people have different comfort levels when it comes to fantasies. And it's also really important to have communication. We talked about communication in some of the last episodes. It's really important to have communication about this when you start stepping into fantasies.
Well, especially this first fantasy.
Okay, and
communication is very, very clear. Master and slave.
Master and slave. So who's going to be the master and who's going to be the slave?
Okay, well, we know, of course, if we were in a relationship, you would be the master and I would be the slave. And that is because now you're getting into more of that dominant submission type of role that we have discussed in previous episodes. But with this master and slave type of fantasy, some people are like, okay, BDSM, cuffing, we know you don't like being spanked.
Right.
However, but you like to spank.
Right.
Right? So the master will be doing the spanking, the slave will be receiving it.
Right.
But what I want us to talk about is for people to understand. They understand and people are like, are you serious? Whips and chains. But this master-slave fantasy, and if planned out, can actually go to a whole nother level of safety.
Right.
Right? So the first thing is we said communication. So those safe words need to be in place.
Safe words need to be in place, and they also need to be respected.
Right.
And so you have to say a safe word that is maybe unusual, because the safe word maybe is not no, because that could be part of the role play.
Correct.
So you have to be clear about
what the safe word is.
It's an emergency 911.
Like if it's pineapple, and choose a safe word that's not like stop, go,
Right.
like you said, because these are words that you mainly use in role playing, right? So you need to come up with a joint word that you both agree on. But also words not just to say stop, but also words that if you're in a certain role playing and you want your hair pulled or you want it a little rough, or rougher, then you have banana, so you not just coming up with one safe word, you're coming up with several safe words for that.
So you're thinking about encouragement words.
Correct.
All right, so
encouragement words, right. But the main safe word is when it needs to stop, right?
I think that's really important. And again, I can't emphasize enough how you have to communicate beforehand. A lot of people think, master slave or dominant submissive, that the submissive person is, just like out of control and the other person is taking control, and that could be further from the truth. Actually, the submissive or the slave is the one that's mostly in control, because they're really setting the, format for how the night is going to go, or how the day is going to go, or how this event is going to go. You have to be clear about what it is that I like. If I'm the sub, what do I like? Do I want to serve you? Do I want to be on my knees? Do I want to be hit? Do I want,
Do I want fire involved?
Right.
I don't know if you remember,
Fire.
It's this playground in this warehouse in Baltimore. And it was a BDSM playhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be surprised how far master-slave will go. And you definitely have to have that conversation, because some people really enjoy this, and it's something called a 24/7, right? And so, yeah, she may role play for an hour or two or something like that, but then you have couples that are 24/7
That's true.
in this role.
That's true.
And it's their daily life. Like, so that's where you have to, have the right partner to do that.
Right.
Because it kind of is like the role plan has now taken on reality.
The very curious thing about this is that sometimes when people do 24/7s, they do contracts. And so it's in writing. and you go down the list bullet point by bullet point. You are going to be my slave. You are going to serve me at such and such hours. You are going to wear such and such clothes. You're going to, so everything is just kind of like itemized, and you agree, and you actually sign the contract. So that part, that's a upper level of communication.
Right.
But sometimes you actually have to have that in place so people understand how serious this is. A trust factor is very, very important, to know that you can trust this other person with your most, innermost desires and fantasies.
Your life, in a way.
Really.
I mean, because like I said, you're now gone from this role playing to reality, to day, this is how we're going to live our life.
Yeah.
And you have to be on the same page, because then judgment is going to come in from family and friends, and it may be something that you keep between you and your partner, your significant other, that this is what we do when we're behind closed doors. But it also can go out into public and people don't know.
That's true.
So, you have to understand when you're dealing with that.
Right.
And we'll get into that, because that's a whole nother episode too.
That could be a thrill, to take it outdoors, but you also have something to look forward to if it's just behind closed doors. So all day I'm at work, I know that the foreplay is already starting to happen because I get a call from my master. Well, I'd be the master, but I get a call, and they're letting me know, by 6 p.m. what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
already that's the mind fuck already that's happening.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And some people may say, oh, that's controlling. But not if you agree to this,
Right.
and this is something that brings pleasure and satisfaction in your relationship. Who are you to judge someone that decided to take on that 24/7 master slave
Right.
role,
Well,
right?
what's for somebody is not necessarily for somebody else. And so if you find somebody and you can trust them with this, and they're like, I'm down, then kudos to you for finding that other freak in the world just like you.
Right. So number 2, the trio. I mean, we kind of got into this the last time,
Okay.
I mean, 2 women and a man, 2 men and a woman, whatever. Every girl wants that, but every guy wants that too. And we kind of got into this last night at an event we were at, and people got real emotional over this. So, I mean, most men, of course, fantasize about having 2 women. And it's kind of like, really the conversation got into last night was like, why?
Right.
Like,
Why is that a thing?
Why is that a thing? But then, female that was in at the event, pretty much was like, yeah, so I fulfill your fantasy, but then you need to fulfill mine, and I want 2 men.
Right.
And men immediately are like,
Have a visceral response when it comes to that.
I mean, it was like one time I had this conversation with this guy, and his wife was bisexual, whatever, and of course he wanted come into the bedroom with them, and I was like, no, this is what I want. And he was like, I'm mandingo. I mean, he got real serious real quick.
What is that?
And
Like,
I'm
why?
like, are you
Yeah.
serious? I was
Yeah.
like, you're selfish.
Or, I mean, but, there's the whole problem with just being homophobic. And so I think men, and
Right.
I don't know, I'm not a man, but I'm just going to assume that they're trying to figure out, well, how is this going to go? Are we touching each other? Is his balls going to slap on? Like, what's happening in this situation, and what does that connote as far as him? What does that indicate about him being turned on by that situation? What is their judgment? Because and we'll get into that later on as well. Is there going to be a judgment call about whether or not this turns me on if I get a hard on and there's another man in the room?
Right.
So I think that's
I'm like,
part
get
of
over
it.
your insecurities. Come on now. It's not all about you, right?
Right.
Because again, everything that you just described,
Yeah.
you're not even thinking about how to please me.
Right.
You're thinking about what's going on in your head
Yeah.
that's holding you back from ultimate pleasure.
Well,
Why?
okay,
It's
so then you also have
men, get over yourself.
The other issue is watching your woman be pleased by another man. And so how does that work itself out psychologically? How does that work itself out? Now, on the flip side, when there's a trio, it's 2 women, 1 man, I don't know whether or not that's ever...
Women don't have issues. Women don't deal with all that. Do you think?
I
don't be thinking about all that.
Well, I mean, you know what? I can't say that I can speak for all women. I think some women might feel intimidated that there's another woman in there.
But guess what? You walked into the situation.
This
You
is
agreed.
true. You agreed.
You agreed to it. No one forced you to do it.
This is true. Oh,
Yeah.
but you know what? Let's talk about that, okay? So when a woman decides that she's going to do a threesome to please her man, so is that being forced? I mean, yes, you did agree, but you don't know what to expect in that situation. You don't really know how you're going to feel, what your emotions. We are emotional creatures. Yeah, so you don't know what to expect. And all kinds of things can come up in that kind of a situation. So,
and again, that's just like with the master-slave relationship. The safe words, you have to have these conversations before you go into these type of situations, because you may go in where you say, okay, you're only going to touch here, here, and here, but then you didn't know once you got into a certain position, or maybe being touched a certain way or kissed or caressed a certain way, that you become aroused, and then your mind is like, oh, well, let me explore this because I never experienced this.
Right.
So then that's where you had the conversation of whatever your safe word is, pineapple. And that means that, oh, I'm going to allow you to have oral sex or eat me out, or that could be the word that I'm now going to do this, but we didn't discuss this.
Right.
However, we're now flipping the script. So that's why these type of conversations need to happen beforehand. And these safe words have to be put in place, because something can shift presently in the moment at any time.
Correct.
And you all want to walk away from the experience having a great experience, right?
I think that, if you decided you're going to step into this lifestyle, because this is just a fantasy, but in the lifestyle of it, you do figure out things as you go along. And so you realize, oh, I don't want, like a thing is, some couples decide they're not going to kiss the other person, right? Because kissing is too intimate. Okay. I mean, aside from this person's penis being inside of your body, but anyway.
In your mouth,
but that's the rule.
Sometimes, but you don't want to kiss.
Yeah, some people, that's the rule. I don't want you to kiss her. I don't want her to kiss you, and that's the rule. And you don't go, beyond that rule. Otherwise, that's disrespect. So, but I don't know whether or not you would know that off the rip. I think that sometimes you get into a situation and you realize that didn't feel good, or it made me feel like this, or it evoked this kind of emotion, and then you have to talk through it. So
you have to. I mean, I think that our viewers are picking up every time we talk. And going forth, communication is key.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just any type of relationship, professional, personal, any type of relationship, communication is key.
So how do you think that you bring up a fantasy to your loved one, partner, so that they can kind of get into what it is that you'd like?
I'm direct. So I'm not passive aggressive. I'm very aggressive. So that's one thing about me. I speak my mind.
Right.
So if there's a fantasy that I want to fulfill, I'm gonna have that conversation, and then and ask, what's your fantasy, and can we play out that fantasy?
Right.
Now the thing is with me, whereas with significant partners or others or whatever, they don't ever act out their fantasy. However, me, I definitely work hard towards trying to achieve, acting out my fantasy. But it doesn't always happen,
Is it a give and take? Do you, if they, do your fantasy, do you automatically do theirs?
Oh, I would. I'm not selfish at all. Yes,
They didn't
I'm
even
very
tell you
selfless.
what the fantasy. They didn't even say what it was yet. You're
No,
just
they
like,
already.
I'll do it.
No, they already. Yeah, sure. They already told me what it was, because it was a conversation. Because normally when you're talking about fantasies, you're gonna want not to just share. You're gonna want them to share with you as well.
Right.
So it's kind of like when you have your partner, you're kind of already have an idea what their fantasy is.
Do you?
I mean, I do, because I listen, and I also ask questions. I'm always interviewing.
Yes.
So it's like, I'm a talker, so it's always an interview.
Right.
But yeah, so we were talking about this a little bit because of our weekend, and we
had a good weekend.
We had a good weekend. The summer unofficially is beginning and everything. So what about fantasy that people have in public places, having sex in a public
Okay, so
place?
we're talking about public sex now. So for me, that's not my thing. I have anxiety. I get nervous about getting getting busted by, authority figures, somebody, might see, whatever. For other people, this is a thrill. They love the excitement of potentially being caught. And
breaking the law.
Right, breaking the law, doing something reckless.
You're deviant.
Other people seeing. So, as we had this conversation, we all came over to, my little pool section at my building, and there's a lot of windows out there. There's a lot of ways that somebody could possibly see. If
That's
you,
where voyeurism,
Yes,
exhibition comes
yes.
into play, and we talked about that in the last episode.
Yeah.
That's a fantasy.
Yeah.
But what is it that people go? Because of course that could just be kissing and touching, but then you took it all the way.
Right.
Like, why do you think someone would want to take it all the way?
I think just for the same reasons that we discussed, that it's a thrill. It's the excitement in the moment. It's doing something that, most people, might potentially frown upon. It's thumbing the nose at authority in some way, shape, or form. And it's just also just getting your freak on, like real quick. It's, I don't know if it was quick, but I mean, just doing something just like, spontaneous. And I think that that's part of it as well.
And it's a part of people's personality too.
Yeah.
I mean, some people, they master the art of not giving a fuck, and it's like, and that kind of translates into other things as well. And everything. But then another fantasy is flying solo.
By flying solo, you mean?
You don't have anybody else with you, so then therefore, you're stimulating yourself.
You're saying in public, or
it could be in public.
potentially
it could be
being discovered. Do a little diddle in front of the window.
I mean, I guess masturbating in front of the window.
Right.
So that you think somebody's watching.
Or somebody's watching.
Or somebody's watching.
Somebody
And
in
you're
the
getting ready to
building
put on
across
a
the
little
way,
show.
they're looking in your direction, and, you might actually have a show.
But do you think that masturbating I don't think that's a fantasy for men to masturbate, because I feel like they've been masturbating since they were born. Men were like discovering and just pulling because it's like, oh, what is this? It's external,
Yeah.
right? But do you feel that's actually a fantasy of women masturbating?
I think I'm talking to one.
Well, it's not a fantasy for me because I masturbate every day.
Well,
but
what I've learned is that some women don't even know their bodies,
Right.
to even, like move in that direction. So they may have seen a movie, and they're afraid to touch themselves. And so it could be a fantasy for a woman to just know how to please herself.
you think it's intimidating?
I think so.
Oh, you do?
I think so. I think that it can be intimidating for a woman to masturbate because there's an assumption that the guy should know how to please her. That's what a guy is there for, and so they wouldn't even think of it as a thing to do. Plus, we've gotten shamed, throughout our childhood. Don't touch yourself, or you masturbate and you're gonna grow hair on your hands.
Never heard that one.
Yeah, I've heard it many times. And so, but my hands are clean. So you have stigma that's attached to that as well. But I think that we are at a point in life right now where we have access to information, media, social outlets, where we can see. Like, I remember when I was coming up, you had to go to the library to learn about sex. Now you can go on the
Google
internet and, you have access to porn, you have access to information, articles, all kinds of things. So I think that we're entering into an area where people are a little bit more open, or at least if they're curious, they can do it in the privacy of their homes and learn, as they go. But I definitely think that that's a fantasy for some women, and that they need to get over and just jump in.
Now, a fantasy of men, because you had mentioned porn.
Yeah.
So that homemade porn video or sex video or something, do you feel that that's every man's fantasy? And then does that cross over to women as well?
You know what? I'm curious to know whether or not, if you guys are listening, could you please just put in the comments and let us know, is that every man's fantasy? Is it your fantasy? Homemade porn. Have I been asked? Yes. Have I done it? Said yes.
You trying to figure out if you were going to say yes or no? Your acting
The
debut.
problem is because what I would suggest to people is if you're going to do it, to do it on your own device, like you don't let the other person leave with, it on their device, just to safeguard, your
Right.
your
You got to be
content.
comfortable
Yeah,
and
you gotta
safe
be
about it,
So, but I've heard of people that they, couples, they'll do a little homemade porn and they watch it together, and that's a turn on for them, or it could be comedy. I don't know. Like you don't realize the faces that you make, or the sounds that you make until you actually watch a replay.
It can actually improve.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah, it could be like research and development. Look at it
It could
that
be a
way.
rehearsal. Let's get it right the next time. Take three.
I mean, but men are probably have more of the fantasy of doing a porn or a sex video or whatever over women. Do you feel that women become more conscious of their body? And then, in this articles that we're reading, they're like, women are going to say, make it black and white so you don't see my cellulite. Like.
No, I've never heard that, but I do know that we are body conscious.
Yeah.
And so that can be a thing. At this point in my life, would I do a video, a homemade porn? Probably not. It was very exciting, in my 20s, and you get one of those little video cameras, and you think you're doing something, but like that's not for me. But it is a thing for people. You know what I mean? And for certain people, they just have a collection of all of the people that they're out there ripping and running with.
Or they have a collection of different movies with their partner.
Right.
It may be their thing. It's like, it's okay on set tonight,
Is
honey.
that something that you can imagine yourself doing as well? Or no, you're not into it?
No. I mean, yeah, when I was younger or whatever, like experienced that. But for me, no, because I'm so worried about
it getting out.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
right.
I'm like and again, communication. You gotta, if you're going to fulfill this fantasy, make sure it's clear. I mean, but you gave a good point. Do it on your own device.
Do it on your own
now
phone.
if your partner or significant other is not concerned about any of that, and they want their porn debut and they don't care if it gets out there, but if you're concerned and you're doing it to fulfill a fantasy with your partner or yourself, do it on your device, because then you can delete it.
Well, you can delete it, but what happens is
get out.
Sometimes things happen between you and the mate, okay?
Yeah.
People break up,
Yeah.
and now they've got
revenge porn. And now you got to bring the cops in, or suing someone or something. So it's kind of like, again, be careful who you want to play out some of these fantasies with.
Yeah.
Definitely make sure someone you can trust, someone that trust is key. Communication is key. So
there was another one that was called A Stranger. So
we talked about that in the last episode,
which I actually like. Which is why I'm bringing it up again. Because I've done it, I enjoy it. I like the thrill of coming up with a skit and acting.
Or do you like the chase?
I like this. I like that we planned something out beforehand, and people have no idea that we're enacting, this thing that we planned out, and so it looks random to people, and they're just like, well, how the hell did he just come in here and just like sweep her off her feet? Or how the hell did she just come in here? She's buying drinks and now they're going to the bathroom. Like, how did this happen? That's the mind fuck for me, which I enjoy. I like that. Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds exciting.
No.
Now, this next fantasy, and it's so cute.
Let me see.
And I actually might play this one out, the fairy tale.
What is this? What is
the
this?
fairy tale, like Beauty and the Beast, or
well, I've done that and I wasn't
Little Red Riding Hood.
I've done Beauty and the Beast and I wasn't trying to fantasize he was a beast.
But Little Red Riding Hood, okay, I'm a girl. I love some red hair.
Would you do that? Would you get like a little red hood and put it on?
I'd be Little Red Riding Hood, but I had my big bad wolf, and we play that out. That sounds like fun, doesn't it?
I have a feeling that we're going to the Halloween store soon. Okay. Okay. I don't know. This one doesn't really do that much for me, but if it does something for you, then
What?
go
The
for
fairy
what
tale?
Yeah. I don't know. To me, it's like I'm bringing my childhood stories into it, and I don't know how to balance all that out. So yeah, so for me, but if you want a dominatrix and some latex, you know how I feel about some latex. I love it. So, so Madam Wee and I went to New York. I don't know what
fairy tale that's latex.
I think that's my fairy tale.
Oh, that's your you're gonna write your own script.
But we went to a boutique and they sold latex outfits, and she saw the transformation. As soon as I tried on this latex getup, I was in a different zone. My mind was just like, it's just secured me. It was holding me in all the right places. It was fantastic. So, if I can make that a fantasy, then I definitely would.
All right, so we're gonna because we're kind of have to bring it to a close, but I want to touch on this one fantasy that I know. I don't know if men have it. I know women mainly have this over men, being a stripper.
A stripper?
Yeah, do you have a fantasy to be a stripper?
No, I don't. You can strip.
I
wasn't talking about you. I was talking about whoever my partner is. You can strip. And I can make it rain.
You can make it rain? That's what you prefer to do, the make it rain part? Okay, that's called the payoff or tip fantasy. So that's a whole nother fantasy.
Okay, but in your mind, what is this fantasy and how would you play it out?
I mean, as far as, just being a stripper, it's an entertainment. I mean, I actually had that fantasy, and I went into a sex club, and they had a certain room that was the stripper room. And it was called Scores, actually. Mm-hmm. And I pretty much got on the pole and fulfilled that fantasy. And I will say this, it was quite empowering.
What's that?
It was very empowering. I mean, and also to see that, wow, at my age, I can still twirl around this pole. I'm still an athlete, because you gotta have strength.
I think adrenaline was probably kicking in also.
Yeah. But it did.
Yeah.
It really, really heightened your kind of awareness. Mm-hmm. And then when you overcome it, it's kind of like, now I'm Superwoman, now I can take on anything. I can pick you up and throw you around, But yeah, so, I mean, how do you feel about men and women, to bring it to a close, as far as fantasies? What is the takeaway with fulfilling your fantasies?
So I think how we started this conversation is key. It's communication and knowing that you're with a partner that you can trust with fulfilling a fantasy, even talking about it. I mean, you can get an idea or a gauge from your partner whether or not they would or they wouldn't, but I think communication is key.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh.
Well, thank you for joining us today on this Wednesday. So every Wednesday at 7 p.m., tune in to Foreplay Matters.
Thank you so much, you guys, for listening. Remember, if you want to support what we're doing, please share, subscribe, like, leave a review, leave a comment. That's all that we got for you right now, but we will see you on the next episode.
Yes, and where you leave that is Secret Society Life on Instagram. You can also go to the website at secretsociety.life. But we're also on every podcast outlet. So all you have to do is search Foreplay Matters, because it matters, and tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.